Yeah, thank you all so much for coming to my talk. Can everybody hear me? Also in the back. All right, great. Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Manou. I'm co-founder of Studio Mantasaur, and I was also part of I did the business side and the game design of INDIGO for my own studio. And today I want to talk a bit about my experience with starting my own studio and running it, and also a little bit about the story behind INDIGO, the debut game, and the biggest lessons I learned from that. And of course, the space does not work. Yes, all right. Yeah, so I want to start with a little bit about the story of INDIGO. So why we started so early in our careers with the game. That's actually two reasons. The first reason is that we were still young, we were still relatively free to take risks, and we didn't have any long-term financial responsibilities yet because we were still students. And the second was experience and credibility, because even though the project that we were working on wouldn't do so great, we would still learn a lot of valuable lessons from it. And if we finished the project, it would add to our track record. We could prove that we would actually have a finished game. Yeah, so this is a little bit us, but cartoony. I started with 3 others doing the studio. We were still in university at the HKU, studying game development. And in our final year, we wanted to make a co-op game. And it went so well that we thought, well, what if we would actually release the game and finish it after graduation? But before we went to do that, we wanted to know first if there was genuine interest from the industry to make this project. So in the last 2 weeks of my graduation, I started on doing research to pitch decks, publishers, and how actual studios were operating. And this first pitches weren't actually very good. I showed my early pitches to my teachers and also to industry veterans, and I got feedback back from them, altered a whole bunch. And what was interesting was my pitches evolved so much. I made more pitches, changed target audience in the content, and this was very important because publishers, I needed to spark their interest at a live event that we planned for. So we went to INDIGO at 2022 to really show our first demo. So this pitch really needed to be fully fleshed out. Yeah, so I told you a little bit about INDIGO 2022. That was the first event we went to. And this was our first event. We also got selected on that event. So this was a little bit of nostalgia today. So we showcased our game there. But what mattered to me most was the enthusiasm, was the follow-up emails 2 weeks after, instead of the polite enthusiasm with, whoa, this looks great. Because I really want publishers asking for the demo and get the meeting after the events so that their interest in our project becomes more abundantly clear. And I also learned that it's actually necessary to have 8 or 9 contract moments before the interest becomes real with publisher. It's not just the first meeting that you do here. You really have to get your multiple events and speak to them a bunch of times before that becomes fruitful. Another research that helped me a lot with pitches and publishers was the indie game business publishing list. It lists over 250 publishers alone, and it also lists all the websites and all the platforms that they do. So you can make a picture of the link there, or just write it down real quick. I'm gonna leave it a little bit longer. But what they also do is they have a Discord, and if you have a pitch, they also judge your pitch from time to time. So you can also join that Discord. Sorry, I really have to look a little bit. Yeah. Another thing I learned was that the pitch should be targeted and researched. If a publisher didn't list that they would do porting, I didn't list it in my pitch deck because I don't want to waste our time, and they don't want to waste your time. So I didn't put it in. And it's also shown that I really thought about my pitch and I did my homework. At one point, this is, by the way, the publisher list I made myself. I listed all the publishers I did a message to, made a whole spreadsheet, and all the website links. So this is a little bit of my messy work I did. But at one point, I had over 35 different pitches for all different kinds of audiences. So not just publishers, but also investors and acquisition parties. And I learned to show that you're sorry, I'm lost again, losing it a little bit. Yeah, so investors are a totally different pitch audience, and that is because they're more interested in the money that they're going to make from your project instead of the project itself, like publishers usually do. In the end, of course, publishers, investors, all kinds of party, they do want to profit from your project. But I experienced firsthand that showing that you have their business and portfolio in mind really helps you highlight your project and making it memorable. Tailoring your pitch matters. I also learned to, sorry, is my mic? Yeah. I also learned to not have send my pitch to info and @contact email addresses, because you're less likely to get a reply back. I did learn to get personal email addresses from business cards and LinkedIn, but also their websites. You have higher chances that people will actually look at your projects. Yeah, their inboxes are just overloaded, and you don't want to end up underneath the pile of all the pitches. I also got lucky once or twice with a company format with email addresses. So if you know one email, you can try out the name @studioname.com. Sometimes it will work. There's also one unfortunate thing that I learned, and that is our project was a co-op puzzle platformer. It also had an online mode. It was our first game. And we also had 2 platforms, not just Steam, but also Nintendo Switch. This was a killer combination. Sorry, I have to go back. Yes. This is a killer combination because the co-op puzzle platformer is not a genre that a publisher is usually interested in. It's costly to make, and a publisher doesn't tend to have a lot of money out of it, so they tend not to invest in them. An online mode takes a whole lot of time to get right. We didn't have any experience, so we eventually outsourced the feature. But it also meant deprioritizing other main mechanics. So eventually we stopped ourselves and let another company do it for us. We also added another platform, which I also don't recommend doing for our first game. It really ensures that you're essentially splitting yourselves. If one platform has a bug, you also have to fix it on the other platform. And sometimes it means just having a whole different solution to the problem. I don't recommend. So I learned that we should have made a whole easier project and finish it earlier. We eventually started in 2021 and ended up releasing it in 2025, which is 4 years. We should have been done right there, like within 3 months or so, preferably less even. To give you some more context, we had 6 worlds, 6 main mechanics, levels of 30 minutes each. And in the end, we ended up with 3 worlds, 3 main mechanics, 15 levels each. Reducing our scope meant having a whole lot of more time for polish, making the puzzles that we had more clear, more time for art. It's reducing your scope, and the constant battle for killing your darlings matters a lot. In the end, we ended up with no publisher. We ended up with having an investor, a mid-game fund. They are based in the Netherlands, and they're a small collective of Dutch game developers who want to support the Dutch industry. And they fund games between 10 and 100K for Dutch game teams, and you also have to have a marketing partner and a demo. And even after this funding, we also pitched for another year to hopefully get a publisher. And I looked at my old spreadsheet that you just saw. And I reached out to 179 publishers, investors, and acquisition parties. It's a lot. So after 2 years, we decided to self-publish instead. It was mid-2024, and it was becoming very difficult for our situation. 2 of our people left to gain financial stability elsewhere, get a full-time job. So this meant that I had to finish the game with my other partner, artist. Our programmer had left, by the way. He had only work left for like 5 hours every 2 weeks, so we were really down to a very small team. But that didn't mean for the amount of work that was still left to do. Yeah, so a smaller team meant having less money needed. But we tried to continue to search for money. We tried to do another round of mid-game fund, and we got that. And we also applied to a Dutch government subsidy, stimuleringsfonds for the Dutchies underneath us. And this money allowed us to hire a porting company and also the online mode, which was really cool. And we also ended up with a marketing agency that helped us market the game. And these collaborations were really necessary to get the game as successful as possible, how we wanted to envision it. Rickle and Game Drive helped us a lot in this journey. Though self-publishing did mean that we had a lot of more work. Eventually, I had to manage various individuals from various companies, the communication, the publishing relations, and also deadlines and timelines. And this wasn't the best option, but it was the only option. It was the only way how we could have released the game in the current situation, in the situation that we had. Even though this meant giving away revenue share to other parties and not receiving money when we actually released the game, which was a big trade-off. However, I also learned that we shouldn't have taken a platform for granted. Eventually, 70% of our income is coming from Nintendo Switch, which is crazy, and only 30% from Steam. In hindsight, this does make perfect sense, because the cartoony art style we have was the inspiration of all those Nintendo games we played as a kid. I also learned that we should have started porting way earlier. The timeline was a little bit too tight, and Nintendo certification is no joke. It takes a lot of time, which in the end did mess up our release date, unfortunately. We really shifted it a lot. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we ran a studio and what I learned from doing that. 5 minutes? 5 minutes, okay. It will be fine. At this point in writing this presentation, I learned that, I learned a lot. So I had a little counter to keep track. Yes. I also learned that I learned to deeply research our audience and put them forward during development and after release too. Ons on Deck was a project that I didn't make for myself. I made it for other people to enjoy. So there's a big difference in I want to make this and there's an audience that wants this. And I personally think this is a very healthy mindset too, because it changed how we thought about development. So who's this game for? And is there already an audience that exists for this game? Or are there already similar games who are succeeding with this genre? So I learned to make decisions not on personal preference, but on actual market understanding. And I know this is boring, but we all like to buy bread. So after release, I prioritized the player-reported bugs first. And this is very important, because in the end, the community that you have with your game will take you more seriously, even report more bugs maybe, engage more, and make your reviews way more positive. I also learned to do more communication with the team, and not just task communication, but actually expectations. And expectations are very important, because knowing why someone joined the team, and not just for creative freedom or money or experience, makes me understand what your expectations are. So why did the deadline shift? Why did the scope need to be reduced? Why are the decisions that you make, where are they based on? And this is very important in understanding each other and have this constant collaboration between the team. Networking. It's great that you're all here, because networking is the most important thing that you're probably going to do. I learned that networking is extremely important for all the way after your project even, and after you're releasing it. Good networking is about relationships and building them. And not just 2 weeks. No, this takes years. People that I've met have become collaborators, but also co-developers and even employers. I now work at Galaxy Grow, for example. I learned that the game industry is surprisingly small, and even more so in the Netherlands. Everybody knows each other. And knowing who is good at what and who can solve you with problems is incredibly helpful for the whole industry. Yeah, so networking is something you're maintaining throughout your entire career. Business plans. They constantly changed. We started with plan A, and we ended up with plan Q or something. I made long-term scenarios with the best, medium, and minimum results for not just the studio, but also the game. A publisher, and also what the game would look like with an acquisition partner, anything like that. Several publishers wanted, for example, that we made a single-player mode for our co-op game, which we didn't necessarily want to make, but yeah, we could, but then the timeline would be longer, which would mean more costly. And in the end, the other option we could do was hire more people, but it was our first game. So this was not the most sane thing to do. So running a studio is unpredictable, and it has unexpected problems, and there are guarantees. So when I thought I had my budget down, I always added 20% more, because unexpected things are inevitable. You also need a business person, uh, because it's a full-time job. uh, Eventually, I did negotiations, budgeting, taxes, marketing, pitching, networking, of course, events. A studio is not just a creative project, but also a business. And trying to handle all of this while also being deeply engaged in the development is overwhelming. And this definitely happened to me several times during the project. And knowing what I can and cannot do is extremely important in asking for help. It's not a weakness. You have to do what you need to do to stay sane. With the limited amount of hats that I wore throughout the project. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is get a lawyer. I know one specific person, I'm not sure if he's here, but get René. I learned that if we're signing contracts, you need a lawyer. And I know it's expensive, and I know it's difficult, and I know you can use ChatGPT. Don't do it. Let a professional take a look at your agreements. There are already a bunch of horror stories of game devs who didn't and regret it. And I've spoken to several of them. It's just a good lawyer protects you and your future. It also increases your credibility. You don't want to know how many publishers just use the raw fury publishing contract that they put online a few years ago. And they didn't let a lawyer look at their newly added clauses that don't make sense. I have seen the contracts, I think, twice. It's just, yeah. Publishing agreements need to be taken seriously by both parties. And there are 100 more things that I learned during my time running a game studio. However, I don't think I have a lot of time in asking questions right now, but just come up afterwards. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this talk is that game development is overwhelming, difficult, and unpredictable. And with all the mistakes I've made, I look back and I still think I would do it again. Because all the lessons that I've learned, I could have only learned by experiencing it. And these are invaluable lessons. Thank you.